Welcome back to the Hacking Autism Podcast. Today I'm joined by Tyler Terry, my husband.
Hey, honey.
Hello, sweetheart. And I want to...
If only we talked like that all the time.
And what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to dive into the topic of marriage on the spectrum. I think there are not enough resources out there or not enough glimpses into a marriage that is on the spectrum, and that comes with its own set of challenges. So I want to talk to you about thoughts or strategies that you have created over the span of our 7 years together. I mean, we've known each other for 17, and at the beginning, you hated me as a high schooler because I was saying crazy things, inappropriate.
Let's be fair. You hated me just as much.
Sure, he was your classic jock. So yes, we will definitely give him credit there. So, but we met in high school through youth group.
Yep.
Didn't like each other.
I don't think we hated each other. I just don't think we understood each other. And that's why we had such a strong dislike for one another.
And yet, it's so funny that we ended up getting married.
That is true.
Divine comedy of sorts. And so we've had to learn to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, to proactively communicate. And communication is a bedrock of any healthy relationship. But I think you really sink or swim in an autism marriage with or without that present. Wouldn't you agree?
100%.
And so what have been some strategies that you've implemented or created? Do you have any frameworks that you utilize when it comes to what you do or don't communicate with me about?
I think that I really have to pick what I want to talk to you about, because if I was to talk about anything that I wanted to talk about, things might not go super well.
What would be an example?
Well, I really like the show Family Guy. You do not like the show Family Guy.
I can't say that I am a fan, no.
I just started watching it, and I think it is probably one of the funniest shows I've ever seen in my entire life. But that is something that you don't enjoy, something that you do not understand. And I just don't think that that is something that, not even... I don't know if that's a great example.
I think a better example potentially might be give an example of something that you phrase it this way: is now a good time to talk?
Oh my gosh.
And I know that something bad is about to be loosened upon me. And so give an example of, is now a good time to talk? Are you stimulated right now? That's the also that will ask that.
Yeah, the hey, are you stimulated right now is basically saying like, hey, I'm going to ask you a really, really, really bad question, and I want you to be as destimulated as possible so that you don't, absolutely lose your mind.
So an example of that might be
budget.
Talking about our budget, paying the mortgage. Could I go to this game night? I forgot to let you know that it was happening. And I know that...
That's the big one.
I know we were planning on spending the night together and having a romantic evening, but I really want to hang out with the guys. So can I? That would be an example.
Yeah, and I think why that's such a big deal is because there's no forewarning of any kind.
I think that's very true.
And so I've really had to learn how to plan as best as I can, because if I don't, it's just not a good situation for anyone.
Not to say that you never ever go to those game nights. I think the best way to be successful in those moments happening, in those events getting to take place, is getting them on the calendar. So
no surprises is the best.
So Google Calendar, I think, has saved us many times over. Initially, you were not very on board as a free spirit, putting events in calendars. Yep. But now I can find out that we're going to have dinner with a friend, or I can find out that every third Thursday of the month is going to be Dungeons and Dragons night. So I can set up time with my girlfriends. And I think through trial and error, you have witnessed firsthand how dramatically different everything plays out if we get that conversation up front, or
Yeah.
hey, I want to meet with I want to have dinner with this couple in a month. Is that, and so basically I'm held accountable if I say yes to the event and then I act shocked the night that event happens. That's really on me because I wasn't watching my calendar. I wasn't wanting to hold myself accountable.
Well, and I think a perfect example of that is I talked to you weeks ago about doing lunch with some friends, and you're like, "Yep, put it on the calendar." So I made a calendar, invite, and she accepted it. And then today I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so excited to go over and have brisket over at the Nierenhausens." And you're like, "What?" I'm like, "Had it on the calendar. I talked to you about it. I feel like I'm winning right now."
Yeah, it's an insurance policy against what are you talking about?
And I think these are very normal things for all couples. Just just how important it is to communicate, to be on the same page. With the calendar and all of that. But things get dramatically more intense and dramatic when you mix in Asperger's, autism to the equation, because we've gone through some just extremely hard, difficult, nasty times when there are surprises, and sometimes they're just honest mistakes, and I try to tell you that they're honest mistakes, but sometimes it does not feel like there's grace in that.
Sure.
When it's just very hard for you to accept that with
or those surprises,
yeah,
those
or the
unexpected
surprises,
things. Like, oh, by the way, you're going to be alone for the next 6 hours, and I don't like to be alone. Full disclosure. So,
which is very interesting because you are an introvert.
I think I'm an outgoing introvert, yeah, and so. But that's its own topic. I think item number 2 in a list for success in a spectrum marriage would be to utilize my Asperger's as a leg up to become a better spouse for Tyler. So an example of what that means in practice is Tyler has had many hobbies over the span of our marriage.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so that could be board games, that could be amplifiers, pedals, guitars. And what I've chosen to do, it's been a proactive choice, is to start caring about those things, to learn more about boutique amplifiers and his favorite pedal makers.
Shout out to Benson Amplifiers in Portland, Oregon.
There we go. And so when we would go to guitar stores and Tyler would play through different pedals or different amplifiers, instead of being completely upset that that's how my Saturday was being spent, I would try to learn about the amplifiers in question, or what made this tube amp more spectacular than the previous amp that we had owned.
Now, full disclosure to those listening, we did not do this very often. This was maybe a once every other month kind of a thing.
I might say once every 4 weeks, but that's fine. We can agree to disagree.
I still think it's pretty reasonable.
And it's not a punishment of any kind, but often what I've seen girlfriends in said stores, or I've seen wives in said stores, they're super upset, or they're looking at magazines and they just don't want to be there. They're really disengaged. And I thought, well, with my Asperger's and loving to consume knowledge, one of my strengths is input, so I just love to consume and learn as much as I can. So then I'll sit down with the guitar shop owner of El Diablo Guitars and talk to him about why the wiring inside of a pedal matters and why one might be $500 versus $5,000 or $50.
Yeah.
And so I think that has blessed you, because
Totally.
when I've talked to your coworkers about very specific, industry-specific things like spiky lights and whatnot.
Another shout out, Roby Spiky.
There you go. They have said, oh, gosh, I wish my significant other
my
cared as much
gosh,
as you do. And so that's kind of fun because I don't always, I never want to feel like I'm holding my husband back or making his life harder. And so what a cool thing to leverage autism to say, you know what? I'm going to care about what you're going to care about. Even if I don't actively play the guitar, I can learn about whatever it is that you're into so that we can have a conversation about, Savage Roar amplifiers and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I think that you have done a phenomenal job with that. That is definitely not one of my strengths. Like, I could not commend you enough for that. So good job, honey.
And then lastly, I think what has also helped us to turn a corner in our marriage is finding something where we can both be successful in activity.
Totally.
And so that has taken the shape of going on hikes through Lebanon Park or Lebanon Hills and playing pickleball. That's been more fun.
Pickleball is awesome.
So that's something where we can both partake in that activity, but feel successful, feel good about our teamwork together.
Yep.
In contrast, in stark contrast, Carcassonne.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes me feel like an absolute failure at life. For
those of you who do not know what we're talking about, Carcassonne is a tile laying game, which is probably one of the best games of all time, in my personal opinion. Actually, I think it is ranked 15th on GameBoardGeek.com.
There you go. So, but that makes me feel like a horrible disgrace of a human, and like that's my own self-talk and being super negative. But that's a really, really hard thing for me to partake in. And yet there are times, special occasions when we're with groups of friends where I will play. The last time we were playing, I got very sick. So we're trying to rewrite those memories. Anyways, and so we have been challenged by counselors, mentors, and friends to find those commonalities in activity that we can partake in together where we do enjoy that. And most recently, Sauce Hunters has been something that we've been playing around with. It's a YouTube channel where we go around and we talk about different sauces that we've tried all over the Twin Cities and Minnesota. And we kind of do it like a food review show because we both love food.
Yeah, we really got to step that up.
I know.
Because I would love to do that on a weekly, if not daily basis.
Well, I would look to you to spearhead that project.
I will. I'm going to.
And so with that, anything else that you would suggest? So that's our 3 strategies for a healthy marriage. That's our dog whining.
Logan.
Hoping to get out. So let's just wrap it up. Anything else that you would not want to add?
I do got something. It's got a little comedic value, but it is very, very true. In the words of Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, all you need is just a little patience. And that is beyond true. Especially for me, as living with someone who has autism, Asperger's, I've had to learn how to be extremely patient, and it does take a lot of patience.
But hopefully it's worth it.
But it is very worth it. We have a very unique and fun relationship, which is very transparent to our friends and to our family, and I love that about our relationship.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Tyler, and thank you for your vulnerability to talk about our marriage and the challenges that it faces, because at the end of the day, we all have challenges in our relationships, and I think it pays to be authentic and forthright about, it does require more patience to be married to you, but I think it's a worthwhile journey, and we want to share those tips with you so that you could maybe apply that in your own life. With that, we'll catch you guys next time.
Just a little patience. Yeah. I've been walking the streets at night, just trying to get it right. It's hard to see when there's many around. No, I don't like being stuck in the crowd, and the streets don't change, but maybe the names. I ain't got time with the game, 'cause I need you. Yeah, I need you. Whoa, I need you. Whoa, I need you. Ooh, this time. All we need is just a little patience.